Hello there. On today's show, I've got two great guests who both joined me separately yesterday. First, it's Colby Hall of Mediaite, and then it's Jared Yates Sexton, who is one of my favorite commentators, writers, authors, and podcasters. My conversation with Colby starts at 8 minutes, and Jared and I started at about 38 minutes. They're coming up just after the headlines. I don't have your clips today because my computer is acting real funny here at my parents' house just outside Syracuse, New York. Having a hard time running an external monitor. I think it's time to upgrade. Either way, I can't do any of the upgrades without your support. Patreon.com/PeteDominic if you want to buy me a new computer for my parents' house. Now I'm going to have to go out and get one today, I think, because this will not stand. I can't pull clips, but I do have your headlines and I do have these great conversations, and I'm very, very excited for you to be here. I look forward to seeing you on Thursday night at our hangout. I also hope that you will be coming to PodJam in Las Vegas, April 9th through 12th. Get your tickets now. There's a ticket link at the top of every day's show notes between now and then. And now let's get to it. Lots of news. Very busy news day. The Epstein turmoil continues. And yesterday it's really affected the United Kingdom because their prime minister is now facing pressure over Epstein turmoil. Several top officials in Britain's government rushed to declare their support for the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, whose grip on power appeared to be under threat, writes the New York Times. Starmer's chief of staff resigned over his role in the appointment of Peter Mandelson, the ambassador to the U.S., whom Starmer fired in September over his ties with the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. So the Prime Minister of the UK gave the ambassadorship to the U.S. to a guy named Peter Mandelson. And now his chief of staff has resigned, Starmer's, and there is still pressure on Starmer to resign. Senior member of the labor movement publicly called on the prime minister to resign. Recently released documents appear to show that in 2009, when the guy Mandelson was a member of the government, he shared confidential information with Epstein. Mandelson, one of several high-profile figures whose ties to Epstein have received renewed scrutiny after the Justice Department released an enormous batch of documents last month. Also learned about New York real estate mogul Andrew Farkas, who says he now regrets his longtime friendship with Epstein, who he used to call one of the blessings of his life, and who also owned businesses with him, including a marina in the Virgin Islands. Anyway, this guy Andrew Farkas, I read about him yesterday. He is one of New York City's biggest real estate investors. He's got all kinds of huge investments, relationships with Andrew Cuomo and so many more powerful people in and around, well, not, I was going to say New York, but everywhere, obviously. And the big news yesterday was that Ghislaine Maxwell, who's serving a federal sex trafficking sentence, refused to answer questions from the House Oversight Committee. That's right. She pleaded the fifth. Several members of Congress reviewed unredacted versions of the Epstein files. Congressman Jamie Raskin, a Democrat, accused the Justice Department of, quote, trying to sweep the entire thing under the rug. Yesterday was absolutely crazy, which is why I wish I had these clips for you. But if you haven't seen them, absolutely go watch all the Democratic congressmen and Republican Congressman Thomas Massie after they tried to question Ghislaine Maxwell. Other big news yesterday, it's not Epstein related, is that Israel has taken over much of the West Bank, more of the West Bank. Their security cabinet yesterday made unilateral changes that could allow Jewish settlers to more easily buy West Bank land, which isn't theirs. It's Palestinians, and undercut the Palestinian Authority in parts of the territory that it administers. The measure appears to violate the Oslo Accords and challenge President Trump's opposition to Israeli annexation of the territory. Of course, I'm sure he's going to look the other way and not care. But the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, set to meet with Trump in Washington on Wednesday, did not announce the changes. That role went to their far-right finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, and another official. He said, "We are deepening our roots in all parts of the land of Israel and burying the idea of a Palestinian state." That's what he said. Not what I said. It's what he said. So just to be clear. In other news, workers at two hospital systems in New York reached a tentative deal to end a month-long strike involving thousands of nurses, yet teachers in San Francisco are going on strike for the first time in nearly half a century, closing public schools for roughly 50,000 students. Those of us who have been suffering through this polar freeze are going to start to come out of it today, which is kind of nice, just in time for us to go to Arizona next week. Julie and I taking the week off, but I will have 3 to 5 great interviews for you to listen to next week while I'm off. 1 year after the Trump administration took control of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the consumer watchdog has largely retreated from enforcement and regulatory work, changes that consumer advocates and Democrats now estimate have cost Americans at least $19 billion in financial relief. That is such a huge story. It's not sexy, but people don't realize how much they've lost and how much we're being set up to lose more as a result of the deregulation of the regulators, which were put there because of the last disaster. Just horrible. Read into it for sure. We've got to do something about it. Consider it when you're voting for people. 2 Trump-appointed judges on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals say that a federal appeals court Friday night backed the Trump administration's policy to lock up the vast majority of people it is seeking to deport without offering a chance for bond, even if they have no criminal records and have resided in the country for decades. A very consequential negative ruling, but a far more encouraging one is that a federal judge on Friday extended an order blocking the Trump administration from withholding funds for child care and social services in 5 Democratic-led states, keeping at bay for now cuts that the states say are politically motivated and would harm hundreds of thousands of people. A key ICE lawyer has exited amid a torrent of legal challenges to the Trump administration's aggressive immigration tactics. The chief counsel for ICE in Minnesota has departed. Jim Stawley is a top lawyer in the federal government, retired after 31 years of service, according to Department Homeland Security spokesperson. So that's a pretty big deal. And finally, a federal judge is expected to soon rule on whether the Ayatollah Khomeini's ballroom construction can go forward. He's got a $400 million White House ballroom project planned, and they're going to be zeroing in on the administration's plan to rely on private donations, which allow it to bypass congressional approval. So we'll see what happens with that ruling. All right, those are the headlines that I gathered for you yesterday. I'm sure I missed a lot. You can always email me yours, standupwithpete@gmail.com. A couple people from Minnesota wanted to make sure I corrected the record, which I said apparently wrong yesterday. ICE had pulled out a lot of people in Minneapolis. Well, Minneapolis still has 2,300 ICE agents. So let's keep making that clear. All right. There you go, Rebecca. All right. That is all. Those are the headlines. Those are the headlines now. And I want to get to my interviews for you because I've got 2 great guests joining me coming up. Jared Yates, Sexton. But first, it's Mediaite's founding editor who's been writing about a lot of important issues, including the manufactured controversy over Bad Bunny, Epstein turmoil, and so much more. He is a real smart guy, a great writer. I always love when we get to talk, and you can read him over at Mediaite. Very well connected. He actually just did Don Lemon's show right before mine yesterday, so always happy to have Colby Hall joining me. Let's do it right now. All right. After a long day of driving, I like to settle in with a nice warm drink on a cold day and call my friend Colby Hall of Mediaite to ask about his latest pieces, because he's been writing a storm, as he always does, making a lot of sense and making things that I don't necessarily think are important oftentimes. Like, I like that. Yeah, you do. I read everything. It's as we've met along the way. Yeah, exactly. I read everything that you write. Because it's what I try to think this podcast is. Sometimes people say, I didn't think I was going to like that guest, but you have a way of making people interesting. I feel like that's how what you do with all of your writing and your coverage. And so I want to start with the latest couple pieces that you have over at Mediaite, which deal with the halftime show, the Bad Bunny halftime show. You have a piece titled "The Bad Bunny Halftime Show Reveals the Business of Manufactured Outrage," and then another one titled "It Was Just a Halftime Show. The Meltdown Reveals How Dumb We've Become." And I love that title. But let's start with the manufactured outrage. Let's go because let's do it in order, because the first one was basically a reaction to what a crazy, sort of bizarre debate that this engendered. And what it did is it revealed this knee-jerk outrage machine that was entirely on the right. And, this dumb sort of Kid Rock show TPUSA counterpoint
there was a time not that long ago when halftime shows were benign institutions that were not weaponized politically, right? They were just like, it used to be like Up With People and marching bands. And then the history here is kind of interesting. In 92, Fox counter-programmed and put on an episode of In Living Color. And the NFL they realized they lost a lot of ratings. And so the next year they booked Michael Jackson so people didn't leave. And that's where they came up with, sort of let's book artists. And the artists love to do it because they sold they moved units. They sold a bunch of back catalog stuff. And then, in the last few years, the NFL has been very, very intentional about trying to draw in younger viewers and viewers in other parts of the world, whether it be Europe or South America. And so, Kendrick Lamar last year and then Bad Bunny this year, it's a business, it's free market, right? It's capitalism. And yet because, I just saw a clip of Megyn Kelly going crazy that football is ours and only 40 million Hispanic, sort of Spanish speakers in a country where there's 310 Americans who only speak English, and this was a middle finger to America. Like, really? It's a halftime show. It's like getting mad at someone's screensaver. Like, it's where you I just got up to get a drink. There's a guy performing and I don't know it. Why do we have to let everything engender such outrage? And the reason is because there is this sort of attention, outrage, click economy working in full-blown horror.
And that works for a whole bunch of programming like Megyn Kelly and others. But in this case, I don't think the NFL is looking to make a political point, a statement. I think they're looking to make money. The NFL is a giant corporation made up of all these teams.
It's the most mainstream corporation you could possibly imagine.
Right. And they're constantly, like everybody else, trying to appeal to different demographics so that they can grow. They want to stay relevant to the people they already have, and they want to introduce their sport to new markets all over Europe and Asia and everywhere else. And Bad Bunny is one of the most popular artists, and that's it. That's the whole game. There was no political correctness or rage baiting from the NFL. It was, can we make money? And they, overwhelmingly succeeded, I think it's fair to say, right?
Yeah. The two things I would add to that. They did. They achieved their goal. The last scene, there was all these sort of flags from South America. That is a great way to appeal the NFL to another continent.
That was when I was most outraged, when all the flags of all those countries came out. I do not like Uruguay.
Uruguayans. No, the thing, the reason it's controversial, if it is not because of Bad Bunny. It's because Hispanics are being targeted and profiled by an administration who simply, if you look different or speak Spanish, you lose habeas corpus and you're being rounded up and then sometimes, illegally shipped off to a concentration camp in Texas. And so it's not Bad Bunny that's the issue. It's the way that we're treating them. The other thing I think that's worth noting is I thought, was it Belinda Carlisle? Is that her name? She sang America the Beautiful and Charlie Puth sang the national anthem. Mm-hmm. Both of which were not soaring, proud, patriotic versions, but were rather...
Brandy Carlisle.
Thank you. Were reflective and somber, and I got kind of choked up because I think most Americans are in a very reflective, thoughtful time. They don't really love or recognize what our country has turned into. And so those two versions were like, oh man, like a meditation on like, what are we doing, people? And, I didn't watch it, but I saw clips of like the Kid Rock stuff. Like, that's the patriotic shit. Like, that's the thing that we're like, it's so
weird. It's such a small audience that they have on the right. And there's such a small supply of artists who could draw at all, much less do a good job. It's very weird to me. My only reaction to Kid Rock was, why him and always him? Is he the only artist who will perform at these kind of right wing, that was a Talking Points USA event. They only have one guy. I mean, it's like a few, but he's always there. He's not good. No one, he lip synced. It was really poorly done. And it's just weird that there's just one guy he's a joke.
I think he checks a lot of boxes. He's a rich white kid from suburban Detroit who has co-opted like the most, sort of minstrel-esque version of hip hop. And he is cool to people who don't know cool. So he's sort of like, it's a weird validating. See, we like this, like pretend redneck country rap amalgam that makes no sense and is sort of crazy and raps about statutory rape as though that's he's literally not a good guy. So the other column, real quickly, I imagined this sort of, because it just seemed like the outrage around the Bad Bunny thing was like, almost like crafted in a petri dish. And so I wrote like a satirical piece that was like, what are other benign cultural institutions that we can weaponize politically to create conflict and confrontation and divide America? So I go through a list of theoretical, like Macy's Day Parade, and the Puppy Bowl, and water parks and cheeseburgers. We're going to start using cheeseburgers too. And it's all silly, but like the idea, like you could not have crafted this outrage click engagement machine powered by the algorithm that keeps us, glued to our screens, but also divided in a way that keeps us talking about, I don't know, great inequality of wealth and the Epstein files and any number of craven, horrible issues that we ignore instead of talking about Bad Bunny. Yeah. What have you. It's
a creative and funny piece. The hypotheticals where we could divide ourselves and make money at the same time, the Puppy Bowl, New Year's Eve. You also mentioned that you think there was too much virtue signaling, or that progressives acted like, they were signaling. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I see the point. I do appreciate it. I also felt like there was a lot of Americans of Latin descent. I noted John Leguizamo made a video crying. He's like, basically we feel seen. You mentioned they've been under discriminated against forever, of course, but obviously now what we're seeing, as you described so eloquently earlier. So it seems like kind of a relief to celebrate Latin American culture as opposed to demonize it. What's wrong with that? Why do you hate the happiness?
Happiness. No, I mean, there's two things. I can celebrate my Hispanic friends for enjoying this great moment as well deserved and well earned, especially in light of the really awful attacks from the administration. What I took issue with was the occasional over the top sort of deification by some predictable progressive voices that made it sound like this was, the equivalent to an I Have a Dream speech. And my point was, it was a halftime show, right? I mean, there were some moving moments. They sort of booked a kid who looked like Liam Rosa, and there was the marriage, and there was a little bit of sort of Easter eggs throughout. Yeah. But again, he's like a Latin club performer, right? Like he's just doing a show. He's not Nelson Mandela. And so it was, I get the moving nature, and I'm happy that John Leguizamo felt proud, and I am genuinely. But there was a little bit of an over the top, like that's the most. Come on, like it's again. Last time, it was a halftime show.
Wow, really anti-Hispanic. I would question if you've ever even met any Hispanic people or eaten any of their food. I would actually argue a lot of people are saying if you're a racist person, you should not ever eat the food of the ethnicity that you're racist against. Like if you hate Hispanic people, don't eat our food. And it's like, they don't hate you that much. They can still like your food. Like after 9/11, people still liked Middle Eastern food. It's still delicious. Like the idea that your hatred would extend to the food, or that people should say, don't celebrate any part of our culture. Let's have some nuance. I mean, you can be filled with hate and still love all kinds of ethnic food, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I like good food, and I puedo hablar muy bien de español.
Wow. I stand corrected.
But I love my Hispanic friends and brothers, and I feel for them in this really difficult, dark time. I also feel that there is room to mock people that like are trying too hard to do the thing. Please. Also, that's part of it. It's part of my brand to be a little bit sort of called balls and strikes. It's not just absurd hyperbole on one side.
Oh, no doubt about it, which is one of the reasons I love reading you and talking to you. I do wonder what you think of this post. I love this Amanda, what's her name? Amanda's Mild Takes. She's on Threads. She's a big influencer now on political stuff, and I follow her on Threads. She wrote, I enjoyed Kendrick Lamar's halftime show, even though I'm not black. I enjoyed Bad Bunny's, though, even though I'm not Latina, because I like America and watching different cultures in their country celebrate themselves because those are my neighbors. It never occurs to me to find that threatening because I'm not a punk ass bitch. I like that take. That was a fun take.
It's good. I will tell you that if this is me revealing my late 50s age, I like the hits. I liked it when Prince played the hits. Even you two, bring out Stevie Wonder, go classic soul, like songs that and this is me, this is me sounding like an old, but this is where the NFL realizes the youths unless they're playing fantasy football, they don't care about the NFL. So that's why they book Kendrick Lamar, and that's why they book Bad Bunny. It's not for me or you. It's for the young kids who are into it. It's not my favorite type of music, to be honest.
I want to talk to you. It's not mine either, but I don't know shit about music, and no one should ever, ever, ever care about my opinion on music. I can't talk. It's my cultural blind spot. I like to listen to music. I can't talk about it. You shouldn't listen to me talk about it. I want to ask you about some of the Epstein file stuff. You've written several pieces, obviously, about this. This is a huge and important issue. It matters for so many reasons. Today, there was news in that apparently certain legislators got access to seeing the unredacted files, and I'm not sure what's come out of it because I've been kind of driving all day. I saw some of the things. There does seem to be some news. The Steve Bannon thing is pretty fascinating to me because I'm obsessed with him because I used to work with him at Sirius XM. But apparently, and I saw this at the great piece over at Mediaite, it wasn't yours, but he's getting bashed right now by right wingers.
So sad for him. Isn't that tough? He's getting, because it turns out the takeaway was that after he was, while he was being arrested the second time, Jeffrey Epstein, Bannon was saying, well, we need to put out a documentary about it. We need to rehabilitate you. You're no longer a sex trafficker. You're a philanthropist. This was after, I think the timeline here is really, really important because he was arrested, in the aughts. And then it's sort of people are well, there's a lot more there. And he got sort of re-criminalized sort of 2016, 2017. And there were powerful people that still stayed in touch with him sort of in that time, after he had been convicted sex trafficker. And Steve Bannon was one of them. So, not that he really had any moral authority, but he pretends as though that he does to his weird audience who don't think critically. And he's lost any. So this is what I think is most interesting is that Trump the MAGA movement has created this sort of monster, Frankenstein monster, that will never accept no for an answer. That's the weird thing about conspiracies. And what started as QAnon, which was mostly batshit crazy, but was actually sort of some of the stuff that we're learning or is alleged to have happened around Epstein is sort of strangely adjacent. So you have a lot of MAGA base who are wait, what? It's feeling more and more like a very enormous and explicit cover-up, right? Literally redacting names of powerful people for no other purpose but then to hide them. Now, a lot of the release files are just tips and allegations and don't necessarily, prove anything. However, some of them do, and some of them are. So, and seeing Steve Bannon sort of lose how he has any credibility to begin with isn't the worst thing in the world. It's kind of lovely.
That's great. That's really great. And I'm surprised it hasn't come sooner for him, but I hope it continues because he's a very, very influential, powerful person in the movement and a smart tactician. And so anything to marginalize and minimize that dude and his influence is a good thing. And if it ends up being the hypocrisy or just contradiction in terms of the way he chose to carry himself and who he really is vis-a-vis his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, good. Take him down. You have two pieces. Trump's Epstein problem is a monster of his own making, and it's turning on him. Another one titled Trump's call for the nation to get on from Epstein will only deepen suspicion, even if he wasn't implicated thousands of times somehow, some way, even if he didn't have a history of sexual assault, even if he didn't have this close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. His behavior to try to obfuscate what is in those files and constantly say, let's move on, is only created more suspicion throughout. But talk to me about the latest move.
That just let's move on. We said, let's get on from it. There's other more important things that we need to talk about.
He said, turn the page. And Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, said, you're on the next page too.
Right. That's a great line. Well, that came in the context of him blowing up on Caitlin Collins and like doing the old sort of personality, like, you should smile more, you'd look prettier, like literally. And I know Caitlin's like a consummate professional who honestly owes her career to Tucker Carlson, of all people. She used to write for Daily Caller, and she is a pro. And journalists are supposed to speak truth to power and ask tough questions, which she does with grace and humility. But everyone focused on, oh, Trump insulted Caitlin Collins. And to me, the headline was, he said, there's nothing to look here. These are not the droids you're looking for, trying to use his Jedi mind tricks to wish cast the Epstein scandal to go away. And him wish casting it and saying, let's move on, only makes it a bigger deal. And the other column that I wrote was kind of what I said earlier. It's like he created a Frankenstein monster. Yeah. He's, and it's turning against him. And it's just one in a long list of things where Trump seems to be, I don't know if it's disinhibition or early onset dementia, but or if he just doesn't care, but he's lost his fastball and he's losing when Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying like it's MAGA was all a lie, like we're in a different place. And I think he recognizes that.
I feel like the power of the victims who have organized, many of them together, is being undervalued and underrated, not only from the human impact, but the political impact in terms of what they've done. They put this ad out yesterday, the victims, Jeffrey Epstein's victims. And so when Epstein or Megyn Kelly or any right winger wants to move on, I don't know where she is on it, but when anybody wants to move on from it, you can, because you have these victims who are not going to turn the page. They're not going away until what they know is made public, until there are consequences for the very powerful men, including people that are very much in Trump's orbit. Steve Witkoff, did you see this week? He also basically defended Bill Clinton. Trump is like, yeah, I like him and his wife. He likes bad men who behave badly because they give him I'm not going to get in his head, but he's constantly defending bad men, and he's got a lot of them around him who are going to be or have been implicated in these files.
Howard Lutnick sat down with Miranda.
I mean Lutnick, not Wyckoff. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he said, like, I only interacted with him once. We went into his house.
He lived next door.
I was creeped out. I said, we're never hanging out with him again. Turns out, like, he was in business with him. He traveled with him. He vacationed with him. They were like, that was shockingly total bullshit. And that's where we are, where people are just like, well, just lie, just say whatever and hope that it will go away. And the crazy thing is that there's all this chaos surrounding Trump and they all seem to thrive in it. Whereas, like, if I have like one small little controversy around something that I've written, I'm like, disabled for a day because I'm so stressed out about it. These dudes are like, just, what are you going to do? Like, just let it go. And for the most part, it's worked for him. Like, Trump, at least, like, he thrives in that scene. And it's terrible.
Apparently Jeffrey Epstein is alive in Israel.
The internet really wants to believe that.
That picture is amazing. Although Jeffrey Epstein looks like 1,000 men, to be fair. But
no, you put it along. Apparently, that image was AI. The great part was that like a Fortnite account attached to one of his email addresses logged in to the Xbox or Fortnite or Epic Game server from Israel. And I'm actually also a Fortnite player. That's my one sort of
no way.
Well, it comes from my kids are really into it.
Yeah, I used to play it with my kids when they were little, but then I grew out of it because I'm a grown man.
Yeah, it's a good 20-minute escape.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fun. Those games are fun.
Totally. And it's nice. I tweeted this that my username I was created as like a Phil Dunphy joke, hype beast dad. So future sleuths, if I happen to go and you see me You can look me up under Hype Beast Dad. That's my username account for Xbox.
I got to ask you just quickly about the arrest of Don Lemon and what do you think that means, the consequences there? Mainly that Don Lemon is more powerful than ever before, just like Jimmy Kimmel is. Every time it just keeps backfiring. It's such a dumb tactic.
I just had dinner with him 2 weeks ago, and I just did a hit with him today. Like, I asked him before we were talking, like, there's got to be some silver lining to this. Like, this has to be good for your business. And he was like, yeah, it still sucks. It's just, like, all things being equal, he'd rather not have been arrested. I think that it was clear. The way that he conducted interviews and spoke with the parishioners and the minister there, he was doing proper journalism. And, in hindsight, would he have made a different decision about that? Maybe. I do think going into a church is sort of not cool for protesters, and I think that's that is unconstitutional. I call it like you see it, but I think in context of the multiple attacks on free speech by this administration, you add it to sort of the threats to corporate news outlets and the invasion and the search warrant of the Washington Post reporter and going through her electronic devices, this is a chilling effect that is, it's not like authoritarian. It is straight up authoritarian. And when you add in the imperial nature of like trying to invade Greenland or extracting a foreign leader from Venezuela, it goes from authoritarianism to fascism, right? It's just straight up. Right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Right. And, not all fascists are Hitler and Mussolini, but fascists are bad, and Trump taking over the Kennedy Center, putting his name on top of it. What are we doing, people?
Authoritarian is the word I like to use. I use fascist all the time, but authoritarian is the one that I feel like cuts across more. This is not what you want. This is not what you want in your country. No matter who is in charge, you don't want it.
Yeah, that's why Brandon Carlisle saying America the Beautiful is this elegiac sort of solemn, end of are we... And I think I was at a party with friends and they're like, we're losing our country. What are we going to do? Like, we all seem so frozen. No King's parade or protest. I don't know if that's effective. Like, you got to vote. I think the midterms will turn out well for the Democrats. I think unless something crazy changes, presuming that we're all able to vote, which I think we will be able to. But
Democrats have to win big because they're going to try to cheat. So everybody's got to vote. There's no doubt that they're going to try to do whatever they can. There's a lot of questions over what they're going to do, and there's a lot of good investigation, a lot of good reporting, and a lot of good resistance to it. The worst impulses of it. Let me ask you about Trump's horribly racist tweet. You have a piece about that. It shouldn't go away. Trump's media allies embarrass themselves defending his racist video. We all woke up to that one over the weekend, right? You just wanted to wake up in the morning and not have too much trauma.
It was Thursday night, and it took a minute for cablers to actually. MS Now jumped all over it. Morning Joe led their show with it. CNN did a good job. Here's a surprising development: Fox News did not cover it.
I heard.
And initially Caroline Leavitt said it was fake outrage. This is a Lion King send up, and then, the thing that I think came from Susie Wiles was that it was just an auto roll. It was the next video that was playing. If you watch the video, there was no auto roll. It was a very intentional edit that came after this. It was an election conspiracy bullshit where Biden got all the votes. And that's when they cut to this horribly racist image of the Obamas as apes. And, the way that these sort of media surrogates showed loyalty by blaming the Democrats for being outraged, all of it fell apart. And they all looked like assholes for doing it. I will say, Megyn Kelly didn't get into it. She didn't say anything. But the Tim Pools and, the other sort of really brain dead Trump supporters that just, regardless of what the facts are, they can't wait to go to bat for this guy, regardless. So it is, it was not a proud moment for the country.
They all try to defend it, and then he came out and made comments on it, and he made it just so much worse. If it was an accident, if it was a staffer, if it was something, he still could have said, "Listen, I understand why people were offended, and people should not. We should not dehumanize each other."
Well, the only thing that's sort of he spoke to a black pastor who was a friend of his, and the black pastor said, Trump agreed, understood, and acknowledged how outrageous, racist, and bad this was.
Oh, he did? Okay.
But he didn't say that. But taking it down, there's been a few times where Trump
He's
is
like, I heard Tim Scott was he's like, my friend Tim Scott seemed to be offended by it.
Well, the thing is also he posted it twice, like back to back. One was the original and one was the quote posted something else on Truth Social.
I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah,
God.
so it wasn't just one off mistake. It was a 2-time mistake. And it was a flurry of 30 crazy posts. So blaming the intern or the assistant that isn't going to get fired come on. But again, it's the fire hose of crazy that we'll look back at this a week from now and be like, oh, remember that?
Yeah. That was 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Last question for you, I think, is about the disappearance of Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy Guthrie, this horrific, tragic story that is getting a tremendous amount of attention, not only because Savannah Guthrie is a well-known host of Today Show, but because America is obsessed with a genre of true crime. So when a crime gets committed, and in this case it's a disappearance, people lock into it. It gets big ratings. People make very, very terrible mistakes, irresponsible mistakes. Journalists, they exploit it. What do you want to say about this horrible situation for this family and how America is paying attention to it and how media is covering it?
Well, I think media is covering it. I think it's a local news story that has national implications because Savannah Guthrie's sort of influence and notoriety. Also, like you said, the true crime obsession. It's a crazy story it's a movie script we're watching unfold in real time.
Right.
I think as a result, journalists are supposed to report on things that they know to be true. And what we're seeing now is a lot of irresponsible process journalism. And I made a point to call out Ashley Banfield, who had reported that she's hearing that one of the chief suspects was Savannah Guthrie's brother-in-law. And, the sheriff said, that's irresponsible. I have nothing, I don't know where that comes from. That's bullshit. And it kind of got in the way. And, she does put it, I know Ashley, and she's a nice person, but she's a foreign person that's pivoting to this live news story. And there's zero responsibilities. There's zero apology. I mean, technically it could be true. But even if it does end up being true, sometimes it's better to not give out leads. So I think it's where sort of clickbait influencer farming needs to get out of the way because it actually is hurting the investigation, not helping it. The investigation. She's found soon.
Yeah, I haven't paid much attention to it, but what little attention I have paid to it is they seem to have no leads. They seem to not know. At least publicly, they're not saying anything. Where
that's the thing. It's what are they saying publicly versus what they actually know? They knew that Kohlberger was the big suspect in the Idaho killings, but they pretended that they didn't know because they didn't want to share more. So that's where Ashley Banfield may have a point. They could be sort of obfuscating so that they can sort of lay a trap, but I don't know. I'm the same way. And I'm not a true crime guy. This is a story that hurts and that is sad that I just would rather not pay attention to.
Same.
And that's, anyway.
All right. Well, I took up enough of your time. I do appreciate it very, very much. I hope everybody goes and reads you at Mediaite, one of my favorite stops, and I always read everything Colby is writing. Follow him and support him on all the social media. You're doing great work as always. I appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks, Pete. Always love coming on here.
Bye, everybody. All right, Colby Hall, everybody, Mediaite. Go check him out. Follow him on Threads and Blue Sky and Twitter and everywhere else. Let him know that you heard him here on the show. That always matters. And thank you very much, Colby, for joining me. Now time to get to one of our all-time favorites, Jared Yates Sexton. Haven't talked to in a few weeks, and he is a great author, a commentator, and a Substacker. You should subscribe to Dispatches from a Collapsing State. You should get his books, follow him on social media, and of course listen to the Muckrake podcast, which I've been on a couple times. Jared's a good friend of mine, and I always love our conversations. Today was no exception. Let's do it right now with Jared Yates Sexton. Well, surprise, surprise to those who will be watching live. It's Jared Yates Sexton, one of our all-time favorites. Been way too long, and I said, I really have to talk to you. And he said, I'm busy. I said, please. And he said, okay. Great to see you.
I have never once in my entire life. You know what's funny about that, Pete? There are certain people I will not do interviews with based on ideological purposes. But anybody that I trust, there's only been one that I've really missed, and it's because I fell down the stairs.
What?
I was like going to record, and I fell down the stairs.
When? Oh
God, I don't know. It was a few months back.
Oh, how humiliating!
I would never say no.
To fall down stairs is like it's not something you tell people. I mean, it happens.
I didn't expect to talk about it today, but you had to make the joke, and everybody knows I am a good codependent boy who would never say I'm bad.
What did you say to whoever you had to cancel on? Did you be like, listen, I had an accident. I fell down the stairs. I went tumbly. I had to, it was one of those moments, I'm sure you've had it, where you're like, I might have broken every single bone. Oh, yeah.
I don't want to move yet. And then you start moving the limbs a little bit, and then I texted, I was like, I fell down the stairs.
I can't do this interview. I fell down the stairs. I'm such a whore.
I literally fell down the stairs.
I'm such a media whore. I would if I couldn't move my legs, I would just set the camera up as I'm lying at the bottom of the stairs. I'd be like, yeah, live. We're live right now.
You know what I was thinking about? I forgot about this, and this is a little anecdote that I'll share. I wouldn't share this anywhere else except for stand up. So back in, what was it, 2016 or 2017? I forget. There was a solar eclipse at that point. And the day of the solar eclipse, I believe it was Ari Melber invited me on MSNBC. Nobody's going to be watching the news. They're all outside looking at the solar eclipse. So and this was back in the day, Pete, where you had to drive to a studio. Oh, yeah. You couldn't just do it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, before COVID and before Zoom and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I drove down to Jacksonville 2.5 hours for literally no one to watch. And I stopped during the solar eclipse on the highway. I didn't have any glasses or anything. I was just like, screw it. How many solar eclipses am I going to see?
Yeah.
I looked right directly at the sun, which you're not supposed to do. And then I went on MSNBC with sun-shaped holes burned out of my eyes. And as I did that MSNBC hit, I thought, I ruined my eyes forever.
You really damaged your eyes looking at the sun, you idiot.
No,
that surprises me.
I damaged it. It took a couple of days. I can't believe I'm telling this story. It took a couple of days for the things to stop. But I was on MSNBC live thinking, this is my life from now on. I burned out my eyes looking at the solar eclipse.
That's crazy, that story.
True story.
That you drove
and
that
then
far.
Years later, when everyone's like, Donald Trump looked at the eclipse without glasses, I was like, yeah, ha, ha, ha.
I would never do that.
What an idiot.
Well, speaking of him.
Yeah.
Still talking about him. Every day.
It be great? There's going to be a time in the future, Pete, where you and I record something. We don't have to talk about that son of a bitch.
When he dies, the celebration is going to be so overt and so international, and people are going to be in the streets, and it's
going to be like the Ewoks.
If in fact he dies of natural causes or something, if you were if someone were to kill the president, I don't think you would have that kind of celebration. Or maybe you would. I don't know. That wouldn't be great.
I think you would.
You do? Even if he died violently, you think people would?
I think maybe it'd be a bigger celebration of what people.
Really? Ugh, that would probably be bad.
Be a tough couple of days, but it would be what it would be.
Yeah, I mean it is a day that will come for all of us, and it couldn't come sooner because just every day we have to wake up and deal with this, like front and center. And just when you think maybe you're going to have some quiet, he shares a picture of the former president and his wife as apes, and it's like, oh man, we got to deal with this. We have to address this, and we do have to address it. He is our leader. He is destroying us and embarrassing us and humiliating us on a regular basis. So we do have to keep talking about him, unfortunately. And
you want to know something about that, Pete? I've only imagined the death in an anticipatory, celebratory way with a couple of people, and they were abusive father figures.
You've only imagined somebody else's death in that way.
Yeah, and what's funny about, and it's not funny, there's nothing funny about it, is that the dynamic that we're in right now is exactly the same as an abusive household. And one of the things that happens in your mind is you suddenly become very fascinated with the idea of nature taking its course. and the problem of the abusive person being taken out of the equation. Right. So we're all that. For me, that's old hat. It's very similar and very reminiscent.
Yeah, I've never had. Luckily, I've never had that. I've never wished for someone's death ever, or like a relief that it would be to have that person gone. And it seems dehumanizing to do. But yeah, we live in this psychosocial world of his. Like, we live in his world every day. We're part of it. And it dominates. It continues to dominate in so many ways. The news cycle, our opportunity, our freedom increasingly, and obviously our democracy. Haven't talked to you in a minute. Where do you think we're at kind of post Minneapolis? And I should make sure that I mention my friend Adam, who I had on the show from Minneapolis, wanted to make sure I mentioned that just because they've drawn down there in Minneapolis does not mean it is over. He wanted to make sure that I make this point that 700 stormtroopers left, but 2,000 remain. My daughter's school just announced virtual learning as an option. I still have to shuttle people around to hide them from the Nazis. This shit is not over, not even close. Media is saying it's over. It is not. So passing that along.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was going to be my first point about this, which is, I don't know if you remember this. I felt like I was losing my fucking mind back in 2020. Do you remember during the BLM protests when they were at their height? You would turn on the TV every night, or you'd go out in the streets yourself and you'd be like, there is a revolutionary situation taking place, right? Where it felt like any number of things could happen. And then all of a sudden the media was like, well, we're good on that. Right? All of a sudden the biggest protest movement in American history just kind of fizzled out in the media. We're in the place where there is revolutionary energy that is building among the masses, which you and I have talked about. That has always been, we've talked about how bad things were. And then at the end, you would say, what's something that gives you hope or something? And I would say, I think there is small d democratic revolutionary energy that is building. I think this is what while, because we don't trust our politicians. We don't trust our media. We understand that our experience is different than what's going on. And I actually think that distrust of politicians, distrust of the media, distrust of the institutions, I think is a huge net positive. I feel right now that people, unfortunately, are having to learn what solidarity and collective action means. And they're starting to understand that we can't just wait around for elections, and we can't just expect the media to portray these things or the politicians to treat them with respect. I actually think that distrust and cynicism that's building is really, really good in terms of what needs to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, I don't know if I can get on board with that. Maybe you can convince me, but distrust in institutions and expertise to me is a bad thing.
There's a difference between a distrust in institutions and experts. Institutions, particularly in the United States of America, were built with the idea of anti-democratic energies in mind in the first place. And we've been waiting on the institutions to save us, and they've fallen by the wayside, either collaborating or capitulating. And people say, you know, it was back in, I think it was 2019, 2020. Somebody had me on a show and they said, what do you make of Donald Trump going after our legal system and people losing trust in it? And the truth is, our legal system does not deserve trust. We know that it is a stratified system. It's racist, it's sexist, and it's also, classist. So I think starting to recognize those things, it brings us closer to the reality of the situation, which means that we have to do something. And we can't just wait on those institutions to save us. Experts, I think, are a different entity altogether, but there's a conversation with that.
Yeah, for sure. You're talking about the energy that is being created as a result of the actions of the federal government, of the Trump regime, and the energy that is creating this kind of solidarity that we've wanted to see amongst people who weren't necessarily paying attention, more apathetic people whose lives have been upended, disrupted in places like Minneapolis, where we are not post. It is not over. There will be more cities and communities and towns that they're going to try to send ICE in. And also the message is getting out that while they're trying to make somehow soften their image, they're not actually changing their tactics. So the messaging might be a little different, but it seems like the tactics are going to continue. At least that's what I've read.
Yeah, that's absolutely the point. And that is, for me, as somebody who does want revolutionary energy and small d democracy to really take off, these are dangerous times. Because there's so much, and we've all been calling for ICE. The most moderate position in the United States of America at this point should be the abolishment of ICE. That's not arguable. This is not, you can't reform this. And meanwhile, we're being told by Democratic politicians, particularly corporate Democrats, it's resign, rein in, restrain, or whatever. You can't do that with these people. You don't want to take the problem and just hide it. The issue isn't, let's make this less loud and less openly fascistic. The idea is that we have to, reform is not allowing them to exist anymore. It's abolishing them and sending the people who are responsible for this to jail. And that, to me, at this point, is a moderate position. And I really hate that it's being conflated with a bunch of capitulation.
It seems that white people being killed in the streets, particularly Renee Good and Alex Preddy, was created an affected change in a way I wish it wouldn't have to, but there's no doubting that it did. Thoughts?
100%. And part of what happened, the history of this country is so misunderstood. What really made the civil rights movement of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, what really made it successful was that the people who participated in that, they made people watch on TV what happened when black people went into these places, when they got abused by the police. White privilege in this country, particularly middle-class white privilege, is built on the idea that bad fascistic things can happen over here, but it doesn't touch me, right? And this right now, this idea that immigrants, maybe they get rounded up, but when good white people get, rounded up or they get hurt or they get killed. And by the way, these people are absolute martyrs and victims, just the same as God knows how many Hispanic people have died at this point. We don't even know. We don't have a clue how many people have died. But if that is what it takes for people to realize that, quote unquote, status quo American life is built on suffering and murder and exploitation, then so be it. And maybe we can get to the point of understanding that this is not an aberration. It is the logical conclusion of what's been coming down this road for a while.
And we've seen this before in this country and others. Those with resources and comfort and opportunity have to put themselves on the line. A lot of people are comparing Preddy and Good to Schwerner and Cheney, of the Mississippi burning story, obviously, that were killed, and so many others as well, who, Dr. King described as being the ones who were complacent, the moderate white folks who were doing nothing, even though rhetorically they would like to see change, but they wouldn't do anything to upend order. That's exactly what Renee Good, Alex Preddy, and so many other people, not only in Minneapolis, but in cities across the country, are doing. White people putting their bodies, their cars between ICE and those marginalized communities, and doing a lot more as well behind the scenes, carting people around, driving kids around, covering their shift, driving them to work, homeschooling, and so many other things, people stepping up. And that's exactly what has to happen in America right now. And is it legal to interfere? There's a difference, I think, between protesting and impeding the efforts of law enforcement. But I'm for impeding the efforts of law enforcement in this case. I'm for that. Is a history of nonviolent, peaceful disruption in this country and others. And that is what always is one path to the promised land, if you will, to working, to beating them back.
There's so much of what you just said, which I think is accurate, that I want to comment on and expand on. But I will disagree with you on one thing, which is I personally, and this is controversial and it's uncomfortable, I believe that they deserve violence. If somebody comes into your neighborhood and they murder people and they steal your children and they steal your neighbors, if they didn't have a badge on, they would be bandits.
I'm not saying I don't think they deserve violence. I'm not calling for violence, but I don't have any problem with violence. The problem is when you commit violence against federal agents, they will kill you. When you don't commit violence.
I completely agree. But the point that I am making,
you will lose if you become violent, is my point.
I mean, the way that you drove out fascists whenever they were taking control is when they came into your neighborhood, you beat the shit out of them.
I'm not saying.
I will say one of the things that I keep seeing, which I think is very fascinating and it gets shortchanged, which is you see these videos of ICE dining, they're having lunch or breakfast or something, and the community members are blowing their whistles and they're you need to leave. And the people are standing there and they're looking at them and they're like, you need to understand that this situation has gotten to the point where if you don't leave and if you continue doing what's happening, you're going to get the shit kicked out of it. And I do think that that's important because what's happening is Crisis brings clarity. The people of Minnesota, that's not just like Democrats or libs in the street. We have people who are not thinking in terms of Democrat or Republican or whatever. They're literally saying, you cannot steal our children.
Right.
You cannot murder our neighbors in cold blood. You can't do this. And I think that really is a lot different than what we've been talking about. There's a difference between going on and talking about like what's going to happen in the midterms. Well, the Democrats are +5, whatever it is. We're literally talking about an existential threat that doesn't care about red versus blue. And it really brings to bear, if you live in Minneapolis, Pete, you've got people who are spending their days standing outside of elementary schools. Parents, non-parents, they're standing outside of elementary schools because there are people with guns and gas who are breaking their way in, and they're saying, you're not getting in here. And that, to me, it's horrific that it's happening. But what it's done is it's exposed something. This shit has been going on for forever. The United States of America has done this around the world. It's just come back to bear. Law enforcement has done this shit in black neighborhoods, in brown neighborhoods, in poor neighborhoods over and over and over again. There has to be a connection that this is the logical conclusion of all of this. And eventually at some point, like you said, and this is important, and going back to civil rights, the time changed when all of a sudden white college students started going on those rides. And they were like, if they die, I die. And because you and I are the same and we are connected. And I think that makes all of the difference. And that's what's going to mean either success or failure. And failure cannot be an option at this point.
You say they're not targeting, it's not red or blue, but they are targeting democratically run cities and states.
Oh, no, I'm saying that the people in the streets are not thinking in terms of like that type of policy.
They're thinking about their friends and their neighbors, right? I mean, like, you can't go into a city as diverse as Minneapolis with a history like that, not to mention the organizations and solidarity created as a result of the murder of George Floyd by the state, by the policeman there, and think that there's not going to be a reaction to it because people protect their neighbors. I keep talking about Brooklyn because I haven't spent a lot of time there, but I was there with my daughter the other day and it was just like a bunch of 30-year-old diverse people. And the most diverse group of people ethnically I'd ever seen. And in every way diverse, people wearing whatever the fuck they want and nobody caring, nobody just getting along. It's like you can't go into cities with that kind of diversity and attack them because those people live there because they love the diversity. That's it.
Well, and I don't think it's a coincidence that we're talking about the same city where the BLM movement started.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
No.
The BLM, not the BLM movement, but the BLM protest, of course, after George Floyd. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that this is all based off of a recognition that this is small d democracy where these cradles exist in the communities you're talking about. Because actually, they always say that diversity isn't our strength. What you actually learn in these places is you learn that diversity isn't just like, oh, you've got so many of these people and so many of these people. It's where people start to realize, oh, all of the things we've been told separate us and pit us against each other, that's all bullshit. Like, we're actually all connected. We're all interconnected in these communities, and we'll take care of each other. And we're not going to have people, regardless of political party affiliation or agenda, they're not going to tell us what separates us. And that, to me, is actual solidarity. That's where actual revolutionary energy takes place. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's taking place where it is or that we're seeing the outcome that we're seeing.
A lot of people have different scenarios and narratives about the incentives and impulses of the federal government, the regime, in terms of how they're using ICE and how they're using immigration and the narrative that they're saying. And one of those narratives goes to the midterm elections. They want people to be violent so that they can claim martial law, so that they can take over governments. The president and many of his minions, he somehow convinced people to think that, nationalizing the elections would be a good idea, something Americans generally don't like. Every American state runs their own election. Which narrative do you think is most likely for these midterm elections, or none at all?
All of them. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people like to, I think a lot of people like to use a silver bullet, and I think it's one way or it's another. It reminds me of the old question, Pete, where people would ask me, is it a grift or is it fascism? And the answer is both.
Right.
At the exact same time.
Yeah, both can be true.
And, when it comes to this, I know that they would cancel elections or rig elections because they have said as much. And because every authoritarian hates democracy, we've seen managed liberalism, managed democracy all around the world. If they can figure out how to rig an election, they will do it. And I think it's one of those things where I don't know, Pete. I look at something like the midterms and I think about if the Democrats win this shit. And I've been down this road. I don't expect, like, if the Democrats win in November, if there's free and fair elections, that's going to solve it. Why? Because I pay attention to what has happened in recent history. I look at how things work. I see how everything moves. I don't think that's going to fix it. At the same time, I look at the idea of these elections being canceled or rigged. I wouldn't put it past them. I'm not taking it for granted that there will be elections. And there's a part of me that's like, well, if they cancel the elections, at least we'll see things as they are. And we'll be like, oh, this is not going to be something that we can vote ourselves out of. This is not going to be something that a savior or a messiah or a hero is going to save us from. I look at this whole thing and everything is on board. Everything is a possibility at this point. And what I'm doing, it's something I've had to learn in my own healing and my own recovery. And this is really important. I'm not living in the past and I'm not living in the future. I'm living in the present. And quite frankly, the people who are doing this, you can talk about Donald Trump. He's an absolute fucking buffoon. He doesn't know what's going on most of the days. He is decomposing in real time. There are very serious people that are spending billions of dollars to destroy democracy. They work around the clock. I do not have 9 months to give them. I can't just sit around waiting for what's going to happen in 9 months. I have to take every day as its own and as its own battle, because otherwise I'm just going to give them tons of ground that they don't deserve.
Got to ask you about this SAVE Act idea. They passed it before in the House. They're going to pass it maybe they'll pass it again in the House. The Senate likely will not pass it. Probably won't become law, but it sure is a bad idea. And just going back to the idea of, a lot of people are convinced that we need voter ID, that you should have to have ID when you go to vote. You and I both know that that's always been a red herring, a scapegoat, nonsense, and completely unnecessary. And we also know that the reason for it is to disenfranchise likely Democratic voters, black and brown folks, young people, people on college campuses, etc. But they want to make it way, way harder. They want you to have your birth certificate. Who has their birth certificate to go and vote? But more importantly, this is a solution looking for a problem. There is no problem. How do you convince people? I mean, you have to be a pretty dumb, ignorant person to believe that undocumented people are voting illegally in elections. They just aren't anywhere ever.
No. And one of the things, I always have to have one of these conversations. I get in these strategy meetings and we start talking about this, or I'll have a conversation with somebody from the other side, a MAGA person who talks about election security. And here's the truth, Pete, and you've seen enough of this and you've been on this rock enough go-rounds to know the biggest problem with U.S. elections, it isn't fraud, it's getting people to vote.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue. Is that a lot of people in this country are either so disillusioned with politics that they don't want to go to the polls.
Like 80 million people voted for Trump, like 77 million people voted for Kamala, and like 85 million people did not vote at all, something around there.
I don't remember if it was 2016 or 2018. I will never forget this for the rest of my life. Pete, you remember when Popeyes brought out the chicken sandwich? You remember when that was the biggest thing in the fucking world?
I don't remember when
Popeyes brought out like a fried chicken sandwich.
Oh, yeah, I do. A couple years ago, they made like this big deal about their new chicken sandwich.
You remember that? And then everybody started coming out with it.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
Pete, I will never forget. It was either 2016 or 2018. I would say consequential elections myself. I went to vote. I lived in Statesboro, Georgia at the time. I was a professor. I went to the polling place. And I walked immediately in. I was handed a ballot. No wait whatsoever. There were maybe 2 other people in there. I got out of there. I got in my car. I took a right on the main road. The line into Popeyes for that fucking chicken sandwich was probably 4 miles long. People don't want to vote. That's not the problem. So every argument that I have with it, exactly as you said, it is a front. and what happens with it, and this is the most useful thing. What happens with it is, instead of arguing about the conspiracy theory with people who are for this, I interact with the emotion. I say, oh, it sounds like free and fair elections are important to you, and democracy is important to you. And they're like, yeah, of course it is. And then you have a conversation. You're like, hey, do you trust the people in Washington? No, of course not. All of a sudden you're together. You're not even having a conversation about this bullshit. It's all cooked up by the think tanks and institutes that we talked about a second. Always.
Just to be clear, because there's some people watching live, if you think that undocumented people are voting in our elections, you're dumb. You're a dumb person.
Because it doesn't work that way.
Well, but why would you? Why would they do that? Why would an undocumented person commit that crime?
By the way, the whole idea is that the Democrats and their associated groups and nonprofits are giving away money and freebies to undocumented immigrants to go vote in the elections. They won't even give away freebies for their actual voters.
There is no money and freebies to vote. There's
nothing for anybody.
You can't vote. Why would you vote? Why would you commit that crime? Why would an undocumented person go and commit that? And how? How would they do it? It's so dumb. I'm sorry I'm wasting your time on this. But when you go to vote, you have to go to your polling place and you have to find your name. You have to say your name. Like there should be a million comedy sketches where someone walks in and is just like, I'm Jared. Or, some ethnic person.
I'm as white as white gets.
Right.
Okay. I grew up in Southern Indiana. All right. When I was a child, one of my nicknames was Bub. Okay. You want to know how white I am? And I have an ID. I have all this stuff. I go in to vote at my polling place. I'm afraid they're going to tell me no. I feel like I'm pulling one over on people, right? I'm afraid that my ballot's going to get rejected. My fucking name is Jared Yates Sexton. All right. The idea that an undocumented immigrant is going to go in and just be like, yeah, absolutely, let's commit a crime right now in front of everybody.
I mean, the comments, people are so stupid in the comments. I mean, they're kind of fun, but like somebody says they give them driver's license and that's all they need. That's not true. What is your driver's license name? What's the name on the driver's license? Where are you registered? When you go in, you have to register to vote. I think that these people don't vote, these people that have opinions, because they don't know that when you register to vote, you have to have ID. But then when you go to vote, you just say your name. And the comedy sketch would be like some Asian guy showing up who's an undocumented person and be like, hi, my name is Giuseppe Antonucci. I'm voting for Giuseppe Antonucci.
I'm Paul Smith. Well, and by the way, Pete,
it's so dumb. Just one more time for the people watching. If you think undocumented people are voting in our elections, you live at the very top of dumb mountain. Sorry, Jared.
Also, it's a racist idea to begin with anyway, because I'm sorry, but in 2024, Donald Trump and the Republicans picked up numbers among the Hispanic population.
Right.
So everybody's going to go vote. It's so dumb. I can't do it. Can't do it.
I mean, of all the crimes you would commit, it just wouldn't. You only commit crimes that have a chance of a payoff, something good, stealing, defrauding. Like, what are you doing? You're not affecting the election.
Your payoff is that a state rep who will never do anything for you.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No, I guess
that's the crime. You're going to put. And by the way, Pete, last time I checked, aren't the Republicans always saying that the undocumented people are so afraid of being sent back to their countries? But the one thing that they're going to risk all that on, getting sent back to the country they don't want to do, is to get some state rep elected. That's what this is.
The guy in the chat, you don't have to do any of this in California or New York. Yeah, in every state in the country, bro. I'm sorry, you do have to register to vote. Then you can vote. You don't just walk in and vote. Your name is on a list, and you walk in and you say, I'm that person. If you believe in the conspiracies around undocumented people voting, it's because you don't vote. It's because you've never gone to vote. You don't understand the process of voting.
If you believe that, I'll take you a step further. Okay. It's not just that you're dumb and you don't understand things. If you believe that, you are a latent white supremacist.
Well, sure.
You literally believe in white replacement theory. That's what you believe in.
Yeah.
Even if you're not comfortable with it, guess what? Yeah. You're on a train. You're on the train, which is white replacement theory. The second thing that I want to say, Bill Barr deserves to go to hell for the damage that he has done to American democracy.
Oh, what did he do?
And he told everybody that this shit's not happening, that there's no evidence of it. When he was Trump's attorney general, he told everybody there is absolutely no evidence. Bill Barr has done everything possible to destroy democracy in the United States of America. And he told I cannot believe that this is something somebody's actually. That's insane.
Millions of people, the majority of Americans are convinced of this, and there's just zero, and no one can ever provide any evidence that undocumented people are voting, and certainly that any number of undocumented, when they do, it's an accident or an error, and that any outcome of any election anywhere at any level for fucking dog catcher or president has been affected by undocumented people. Again, the dumbest people live here.
I just want to put one thing out there for because I feel dumber for having had this portion of the conversation.
I know, I'm sorry.
I feel like I suddenly went colorblind. I wouldn't be able to tie my shoes if I had to. Like, I want to give a little bit of context for people. There was this guy named Bill Cooper. He was Alex Jones before Alex Jones, for people who aren't aware of Bill Cooper. And Bill Cooper wrote a book called Behold the Pale Horse, which is the Bible of modern American conspiracy theory. And he said something in this book, Pete, that has stuck with me forever when it comes to the Republican Party and conspiracy theorists. And you know what he said? He said, I know that conspiracies are real because if I was in power, I would participate in a conspiracy to keep that power. Everyone who says the Democrats are paying undocumented immigrants to vote in elections want to fix elections and want to rig elections. They're projecting what it is that they want to do. That's it.
And they just want to make voting harder.
Every right-wing accusation is a confession. Period.
They want to make voting harder. It's worth mentioning the fact that countries like Australia have compulsory voting. You automatically are registered when you get your license, and then you have to vote. It's the law. And I believe that we should have that same law here.
We should have compulsory voting. We should have a holiday, the day of the vote.
Yep,
it doesn't end.
Yeah.
It doesn't end. The things we should do.
Pete Dominic, you may want to do research off of CNN. Listen, stupid. You're stupid. You're the dumbest. You people are. The fact that you think undocumented people are voting in our elections makes you. I wish you would say it under your actual name in front of people, and then I wish you would find me evidence of it. Dum. It's the dumbest crime. There should be a show called "The Dumbest Crime." Undocumented people.
The only thing I can think of that would be dumber is if you committed the crime of depositing money in a bank using a forged signature.
Yeah, it'd be.
That's the only thing that I can think of that's actually dumber.
That's pretty dumb. But who's paying you to? No one. For me, I make money off of subscribers, individuals. Actually,
that's another thing. Okay, again, because this is such a dumb segment, I have to class this up.
It's only because I'm reading the comments on YouTube.
Well, it is what it is. You can't read the comments. The idea that all the people are being paid by George Soros, you know why everyone claims that? Because the entire right wing is astroturfed by a bunch of billionaires. Nobody watches their shows. Nobody downloads their podcasts. Nobody buys their books. Nobody goes to see Melania. It's a bunch of billionaires who are paying for all this shit.
I went to see Melania.
Oh, God, what?
I thought I was seeing a different movie, and I walked in and Melania was playing, and I stayed because it was such a quiet theater.
Stop it.
I wanted to be alone, so I watched Melania. Also, you pronounce words weird every once in a while, and there's never any way to predict it. But
what did I?
You pronounce people's names wrong. It's not Melania. It's Melania.
Melania. If you think for a second that I'm going to learn how to pronounce that asshole's name correctly.
Yeah, I know, but you pronounce good people's names wrong too. I believe you called.
I'm from Greene County, Indiana. I'm lucky I can read, Pete.
You said Desmond Tutu one time. I thought that was no.
I did not say Desmond.
You said Gindi. Okay. You said Martin Luther King, which I thought was really weird. All right, let's move on to Jeffrey Epstein, which I bet is how you pronounce his name, as opposed to Epstein.
The New York financier.
The New York financier. What do you make of this, man? I think this is crazy. The victims are never going to give up. We are going to see this. There is going to be some kind of justice. I'm sure of it. You probably aren't.
No, I'm not sure of it. But I will say, I was talking about revolutionary energy earlier. Like, there's so many different things that need to happen, but if there were to be something of a revolution that is needed in this country, everybody who showed up in those files, including Nick DiPaolo, would...
Nick DiPaolo?
Nick DiPaolo's, yeah.
The comedian?
He's in there. You didn't know that?
What are you? He's an old friend of mine. I mean, we're not friends anymore, but...
Well, I don't know, Pete. You might want to reconsider your connection.
Nick DiPaolo is in
Nick DiPaolo's in the Epstein files.
How so? For what reason? I mean, you could be in it for being talked about. Like, let's be clear.
No,
like Jon Stewart's
emails with Epstein.
No way.
True story. I thought you would like that. Yeah. Everybody in it needs to be held responsible. Everybody. Absolutely everybody, because the entire system is corrupted. What I've written about on Dispatches from a Collapsing State is it is proof that this entire system, whether it's presided over by a bunch of pedophiles, which it obviously is, the people who are hurting other people, including keeping us impoverished, keeping us oppressed, keeping us exploited, hurting people around the world, like, it's a class of abusers. And we have to recognize that's the truth. We can't hide behind this fantasy that, like, there are, like, benevolent leaders amongst us. There's not. This whole thing is just corrupt top to bottom. I
had to read about it.
I know you are. I knew exactly what you were doing.
Bobby Slayton invited him, another comedian I know, to Jeffrey Epstein's house for dinner. Woody Allen is there. And DiPaolo says, he said at the dinner, he said, "Holy shit, I'm the only non-pedophile in the bunch here." He actually isn't, like, he was always happily married, Nick. And I never saw him, like, he says things. I never saw him do anything, to anybody. He's got some really horrible views, obviously. And he's also a very funny guy, but, it is, I don't think he did anything. I don't think Nick,
welcome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You're welcome.
Unbelievable.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You can sit with that later.
Here comes the victimhood. Who's more of a victim than, right-wing white Christian nationalists?
Well, I mean, that's all they are. And by the way, it's textbook abusers. Abusers hurt other people and then claim they're the victim at the exact same time. It scales up from the personal up to the political. It's all of them.
Fair enough.
All of them.
So you don't think that, all right, well then moving on from necessarily where we're going with the Epstein files. I mean, by the way, Steve Bannon's been heavily implicated, and the right seems to be turning on him, which I think is a great thing, because he's a very influential, very powerful, very strategic guy.
No, absolutely. I mean, Bannon being all over this, I wasn't shocked by it because, you know, if you actually look at the history of, like, far right fascist authoritarian movements, they always have shit like this. Like, they have people who are, some of them are addicted to the abuse. Some of them are, you know, whether it's pedophiles or perverts or abusers, whatever it is. Others are obsessed with the occult parts of it. There's a reason, of course, why so many of these things incorporate these elements. And the whole truth of it is that, like, the far right is always going to have something like that. The architects of it, the ideologues of it, they're always going to be involved in this shit. So I wasn't shocked to see Bannon all over the place.
Yeah. Ugh, so gross. He's the worst. What do you think of this theory now that you're seeing what happened in the Republican Party and kind of the Tea Party movement, where a whole bunch of establishment Republicans lost their seats in Congress to radical right-wing conspiracy theorists? In that case, something similar is happening to the Democratic Party establishment. What do you think about that theory that a lot of people are, I think, taking pretty seriously? I mean, you can see certainly hallmarks of it. Do you think it's true?
It's either going to happen that the establishment Democrats are going to be replaced by a new class of politicians that take things seriously and aren't corrupt, or there's going to be a new party. I don't think there's any in between there. And right. I think I've been telling people, I wrote a white paper not too long ago that this was going to be a stress test for the Democratic Party of whether or not it's going to survive going forward. I think that's what we're about to watch.
All right. Well, I have a million more questions for you, but I've already taken up so much of your time. I can't believe it went by so fast.
Well, I mean, you know, time flies when you find out Nick DiPaolo is hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein.
It's crazy. I was probably with him earlier that night. Nick, not Epstein. I don't know how long ago that was. Oh my God. We used to open, me and Nick DiPaolo used to both open for Artie Lang, and it would be me, then Nick, then Artie. And so I went out, I did my set.
That's a nightmare blunt rotation for me, my friend.
Oh yeah.
That's a tough one.
And and I introduce Nick, and Nick comes out and he goes, "Give it up for Pete Dominic. He's a Make-A-Wish kid. His wish was to open for Artie Lang." So he was the most insulting, funny guy to hang out with. But he went way, 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 way right into conspiracy.
Do you think that's how Jeffrey Epstein felt about him?
I don't know. But they did have dinner together, apparently. That's gross. Well, listen, buddy, we can find you at the Muckrake Podcast, and we can find you at Substack. And where else are people finding you these days? Or is that where we mostly find you?
Those
YouTube?
are the two. Oh, I also do a weekly show on Wednesdays at 12 noon with Daniel Moody called The Check-In.
That's great.
We're talking about the emotional toll of living under fat.
I love you two together. I've seen that you go live sometimes, and I always see it too late. On Substack? Do you go live on Substack with her? Yeah, Danielle's great, old friend of mine, and the two of you together is a great duo. Love to see it, and we'll be watching the next time you do it. Jared, as always, thank you for watching. Thank you to the trolls for joining us. Undocumented people do not vote in our elections. Deal with it. Find one and send them our way. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Later.
All right. Jared Yates Sexton. Hope you liked it. Hope you will follow him on the social medias and subscribe to the Muckrake Podcast, as well as get his books and subscribe to his Substack right now. Dispatches from a Collapsing State. So good. Always great. Thank you to him and Colby Hall. Hopefully we'll fix the technical issues and get our clip show back together for tomorrow's show. I can't do any of it without you. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Thank you to all of you bumblebees who listen all the way to the end. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, my friend Mark Nolte out in Iowa. I really, really appreciate all of you guys more than anybody else, because you listen all the way to the end. You guys are the best. That's why you're the Bumblebee Gang. All right, that's all. I will talk to you tomorrow. John Carroll taking us out as always.
Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know us right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. See the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change would begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand